Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review episode 50. Yes, episode 50. Like in the case of the last episode when I did with the Black Guardian, this one is basically a series of stories that are connected because of one character. A character was Barospa. This story here is his debut appearance. It also features the return of the Master, and it is the only classic Doctor Who story to feature zero companions story. From Tom Baker's third season of the show. No, seriously, it's his third season. His 88th story. The preceding story was called The Hand of Fear. This basically brought about the end of Sarah Jane's time in the show, though she came back twice in the Air Classic Who. First in the the aborted spin-off known as Canine Friends, which was a weird show. And and of course Sarah Jane will also pop up another time in, actually two more times after that. She popped up in the Five Doctors, and she popped up in Dimensions in Time, which a lot of people consider this one not canon. Yes, it's a very brief appearance, but fans consider her true return to the franchise when she popped up in School Reunion during, I believe it was Series 2, under the current Doctor Who. This is the story that came between her leaving the show and before Leela showed up the very next. So this is the story came between there. Leela showed up in the face of evil. And it's interesting, though, the fact that Sarah Lee's in the hand of evil, and Leela shows up in the face of evil. Just by sheer coincidence. Alright, this one is called The Deadly Assassin. One of the most violent Doctor Who stories of all time. And also a story that a popular critic of the show, Mary Whitehouse, absolutely hated the story. And got the director of the story, which by episode 3, had a cliffhanger of the Doctor nearly being drowned. So the director got fired for it. Yes, for daring to depict the Doctor attempting to drown the Doctor. Yes, Mary Whitehouse was not a fan of the dark elements of Doctor Who. So Khan's like, this is stupid, we hate this. Yes, Mary Whitehouse. I'm sure a lot of Doctor Who fans probably don't care for this woman at all, because of the fact that she basically inadvertently changed stuff Doctor Who that people probably at the time, I'm sure viewers probably didn't have a problem with this at all. She absolutely hated this. And apparently the BBC listened to her stupid complaints that she had about the show. Some of the complaints were really stupid. And here's the thing. From what I've heard, the producers of the show realized, though, that yes, the audience are growing up. Mary Whitehouse was under the stupid assumption Doctor Who was a kids' show. Despite the fact that the producers recognized the fact, like I said, they grew up. They still watch the show. We have longtime viewers. That, as far as I've heard, no one had. And here's the thing: Mary Whitehouse was the only major critic who hated. She bashed Doctor Who like crazy for years. When Tom Baker was on the show. Not the case when it comes to his successors, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Spencer McCoy. I've never heard any complaints about her complaining about any of those stories. But oh boy, she bashed on Tom Baker stuff a lot. Yes, it is. Now, do I think it should receive much hate the Mary House gave it? No, because it's a good story. The Doctor, who by the way is in not the regular TARDIS room, by the way, he's in a room where it's made of wood. I have heard that apparently this particular thing was done just to try something different, and then eventually he switched back to the regular console room in between seasons, from what I've heard. The reason was because the fact that apparently between the seasons, the set received water damage, so they had to replace it with the previous set. Okay, Perfectly fine. Now, the story starts off with the Doctor. Oh, by the way, we have a return here of the Master. Yes, the Master. I'll get to him. So, story starts out Doctor just traveling towards by himself. No companions at this point in time. He just gets a companion next story. He receives a vision of the president of Time Lords being assassinated. And apparently he was one who did it. So he goes to Gallifrey. And here's the thing of how the story is written. So apparently some people on Gallifrey have no idea who the heck Doctor is until this guy actually does some research. I mean, Barospa knows who the Doctor is, obviously. They can't ask him about it. Oh no. Look up in the frickin' records. There's also copies of every single Time Lord in existence. This also is a story debut, something called The Matrix. No, not The Matrix of the 1980 movie. No, this is completely different. It's a Mindscape type of thing. The action would return a decade later in the Trial of the Time Lord, which was the second season of Colin Baker on the show. Yep. Yeah, so he arrives on the planet. Of course, they try to arrest the Doctor, but then he gets transported. This also has a character named Goth. Yes, a sort of young man who's now this old guy who apparently looks like some man. Okay, fine. So he wears a sash, and that sash he's wearing becomes very important during the last episode of the story. Yes, it just becomes completely out of the blue. Like, oh, this ceremonial sash that he's wearing and the staff he's holding becomes vitally important for this story in the last part. The story goes by pretty quickly. And by the way, the first part ends with the assassination of the Time Lord president. And supposedly the Doctor's one who killed him. Turns out he did not kill him at all. We also have it where the technician was there before he was, or he just disappeared. Though he's later found, turned into a toy. And he's dead. Yeah, and it's shown the fact Doctor seen this before. By a man known as the Master. Yes. Now, I should point out, though, that the original actor has long since passed away at this point. I think he'd been dead at this point for a few years. The other reason why they didn't bring him back after his last appearance in Frontier of Space because the actor died. Why brought back in this story, I don't know. And if you are really curious, who plays the Master? Because this version of the Master will show up actually one more time after this in the second to last story of Tom Baker's run. The Master is played by a man named Peter Pratt. Now, this guy is sadly no longer alive. He passed away in 1985. This was his sole appearance ever in Doctor Who. Yeah, he appeared in this one story, and then he never played the Doctor again. Yeah, and apparently, get this, the Master looks like a rotting corpse. It is explained the reason why he looks like this, because the Master has run out of regenerations. No, seriously, he has. And here's a fun fact for you about the actor who replaced him a few years later. Jeffrey Beavers. He's shockingly still alive. Yeah, he's the only one of the Masters from the classic Doctor who's surprisingly still alive. And he, of course, married Liz Shaw. So, his plan is simply to, well, cause the death of Time Lords. The reason why he's doing this is because he's dying. Yep, that's simply the reason for it. Of why in the world they decided to do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he had this thing where he would talk, whenever he spoke, his mouth moved a little bit. Well, that's because of the mask he's wearing. And in fact, when you saw him, he looks very. Despite the fact he's supposed to be a rotting corpse who can move, he's like a zombie. Yeah, it's very creepy. Like what caused the regeneration is never explained. Yeah, that's something about this that I thought was kind of weird. They never properly explained of how the heck this happened. Now, what could have caused it? Never explained. I guess they said they acted back now. And here's the thing. It only had been 3 years since his last appearance. Yeah, 3 years. And he does this in 1976. Same year as the year of the bicentennial. Yep. So, the Doctor is arrested for the assassination of the president, but he's able to avoid through all the deliberations. Like, any last words before we pass judgment on you? Yes, I like to evoke Article 17. And like, what's Article 17? What is, you might ask? His announcement of the participation in the candidacy to become president of the Time Lords. And he has to do 48 hours or be executed. And that buys him more time than 3 hours. And Goth decides to run for president too. And of course, he's not seen on screen very much at all, though it's revealed he actually is working with the Master later on in the story. Yep. So Doctor looks inside this particular room that was shown. This all details his history. This is altered. Also, there's a whole file about the Master just missing for no apparent reason. Now, who could have done this? It's implied it was Goth, but never stated. Not really. Excuse me. So, then, of course, about half of the story, the Doctor decides to travel into the Matrix. No, not the way to do it in the movie. Yeah, lie in this bed, but these two things on his head, and then basically go into a coma and fight on look like a side of a hill. At one point, he steps into an egg and nearly gets run over by a train. And by the way, this guy's in Maz the whole time, which turned out to be Goth. Yep, it was Goth. And then, of course, feeds him in the story. As mentioned, he supposedly is fried. Then, of course, Doctors managed to find where the Master's lair is, which is actually not that far from where they are. So, they find the Master apparently dead. So, the Doctor for himself probably on screen. I love the moment he sees the Master. He just walks up to this hooded figure who's sitting down. He pulls at the veil, and he sees the face of the Master. I thought that was a really cool moment, and the fact they think he's dead. So, they suspect natural causes, but then they suspect he killed himself. And then Doctor sniffs it and like, nope, he didn't kill himself. He faked his death. Yep, he faked his death. Then, of course, like, oh, like, what is this Master? Okay, so they reveal the sash is actually a piece of technology that apparently can protect them from parallel universes. And the rod can open up the Eye of Harmony. Which, here's a fun fact for you about the Eye of Harmony. Did you know that in classic Doctor Who, this is its sole appearance? Until it pops up in the Doctor Who movie in the 1990s? No, seriously. It pops up here for this story, and then it pops up again in, well, Doctor Who movie for no apparent reason. Like, how the heck did Eye of Harmony get from Gallifrey to Doctor TARDIS is never really explained here. Maybe they were planning to explain it, but it's a movie. What do you expect? And of course, that the Doctor is like trapped in the room, and of course, Master gets out with, of course, the sash of the president. Yeah, by the way, the president's body is there, like lying on a slab. I'm like, and he's still wearing the sash. I would have thought, though, they removed that by this point. Nope, he was still wearing it. So, and we didn't see when he apparently got shot. It looked like he was shot in the shoulder, and yet somehow he died. Okay. Oh yeah, and it turns out, though, the fact person killing him was Gashagov himself on the orders of the Master. So, the Doctor managed to crawl up a 100-foot shaft, and then he proceeds to fight the Master. Master falls into a hole in the floor, which apparently leads to a black hole, which apparently is... Here's the thing about it, the iHarmony. The people there, they think iHarmony is a myth. And the Doctor's like, really? This is the Foundation of Time Lord Society. How the heck do you believe it's a myth? Yeah, and also he's a former Rassilon. Yes, this is the first mentioned name Rassilon. Rassilon himself would not make a physical appearance in the show until the Five Doctors, which came about, I think it was like about 7 years after the story. Yep. But this story itself is really cool. I love it. I give the deadliest... By the way, you do get a chance to see a Doctor with this outfit. The only time in the whole show, one of the few times he wears this damn thing. I give this one a 10 out of 10. It's good suspense. I love the writing here. And it's a Robert Holmes story. It's awesome. Yep, so yeah, that's it particular view. Next up is Two Common Corners, and it's right back Doctor Who for another story on Gallifrey. Oh, speaking of Gallifrey, did you know this is the first time Gallifrey has been seen on Doctor Who since the 10 Doctors? No, seriously. Not since the 10 Doctors. And that was like back in... So basically, not only Return of the Master, but also Return of the Time Lords. So yeah. But at least they don't use plates to tell, oh, we can't attack this, can't attack that. At least this is also the one that introduced the goofy outfits. Yeah, that's the thing about this story. Like, when you think that the picture you see of the Time Lords, like Doctor wearing this goofy hat, this cool collar type of thing, this is the story he introduced it, because the last they showed, they didn't wear these silly things. But this is the story he introduced them. But yeah, that's it, particular view. Next up is Two Comic Corners, and it's back Doctor. Okay, bye.